Welcome, everyone. Hello, hello. It's great to see you in our webinar series, Attention Matters. We're waiting for everybody to join. We had such, big registration numbers, so we're just going to give people time to join. We're delighted that you can join us in this fourth webinar of the series, Attention Matters, organized by LanguageCert. We're here today with Anna. I will introduce her in a moment, but I wanted to, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Silvia Karastati. I'm the head of teacher support for LanguageCert, and we're here with our new edition of Attention Matters. This series started in February. We have hands-on sessions on enhancing memory during exam. If you missed it, you can go on our YouTube channel. We'll give you all the information a bit later. So, hello and welcome. Anna, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you from Dubai this morning.
Oh, it's great to see you. Where is the rest of the group joining? Please write to the chat with a hello. I see a lot of you people are already writing. It's great. Good morning to Athens, Ireland as well, Pakistan, Moldova. It's great to see so many people from our teaching community joining. And it is great to be with Anna Hasper today. So let's talk about the series. Keep writing hellos as we start, so this series it's become very important for us. We wanted, with this series, Attention Matters, we wanted to reflect on this new attention paradigm. And we also wanted to explore how learners can balance what a lot of people are talking about as fragmented attention with focused attention moments. And also we wanted to explore how that can happen in tech-rich environments. So when we invited speakers to think about attention mechanisms and memory, about the attentional demands of learners in digital environments, about the use of visual strategies. And today, Anna is going to talk to us, we're going to go into the brain, it's going to talk about creating the conditions for learning with balancing the brain. So what I feel, this is an important topic, and we're listening closely to educators as they're witnessing these changes within the attention paradigm in their day-to-day practice. So this is, the chat will be open for your comments. If you have a particular question for Anna, you can put it in the Q&A. Welcome everyone. I see people are still joining from Turkey, from Belfast. Hello and welcome. And we will be issuing certificates of attendance, as always, for our attendees. This will come in your email in next week's time. And let's welcome Anna, who's she's been with us in December as well, talking in our Energize series. So this is the second time that she's with us, and it's a great pleasure to have her here. She's a CELTA and Delta tutor and assessor and an educational consultant. She has a book out on activities for socio-emotional learning with Delta publishers, and you're gonna discover how passionate she is about the things that she talks about, her warmth and also excitement about socio-emotional learning and the importance of it always gets me very inspired. And in our conversations, we're managing to come up with great ideas. This webinar was created through kind of bringing our common shared interests and in this matter. So Anna, I'm really, really pleased to welcome you. Delighted. Thank you so much for being here and for the webinar today.
Thank you for inviting me again, Sylvia. And yeah, thank you for the lovely introduction. And I'm really, really happy to talk about this topic that I'm indeed very passionate about. And I know you're very interested in as well. So lovely. Shall we get started then? Great.
Absolutely, yes.
Lovely. I just want to say thank you to all the teachers out there who are joining us, because I know it's a very busy time for all of us towards the end of the school year for many of us. I really appreciate that you've taken some time to come and join us. Now, you might have to leave during the webinar because you have work or things going on. Absolutely fine. Sylvia said there will be a recording. You get the link later. If you still want to talk about this topic later, feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest. And I'm happy to continue that conversation. So great. Now, enough talking from us. I think it might be nice to do a quick check in the chat box. Can you tell me a little bit more about your teaching context? Do you teach primary, secondary, adults, or maybe a mixture? or maybe you don't teach adults. If you want, you can just pick that number that you can see on the slide, 1, 2, 3, or 4, if that's easier, Sophia. Wonderful. A mixture, Zoe. Thank you, Nicoletta. Oh my goodness, the chat box is going super fast. Individuals, Teresa's saying. Milica's also saying, Milica saying a mixture, Ima. Yeah, it doesn't really matter, but I think to keep in mind that some of the activities we're going to do today, and I will show you because we don't have time to do all of them, that you need to think, would this work with my learners in your context? You are the expert in your context. So I'm just going to share some practices with you that I have used. But you, in the end, need to say, okay, this works with mine, this maybe doesn't work with mine. Because as we all know, not a single class is exactly the same, right? Thank you. Second question, what is your teaching context? State school, private school, maybe you work at a uni or a language school, maybe you offer one-to-ones in your own company, or again, maybe a different context. University, I get them all already. 1, 2, 3, 4. Arish, thank you, Iona. Yeah. Now, again, it doesn't really matter, but I think if you teach one-to-one, if you teach in a private language school, quite often we have a little bit more freedom within that curriculum that we provide. So some of the activities you might think, I don't have time for that. Other activities, I think they're very short. You can hopefully carve out some time to fit them into your lesson because they're important, and I'll tell you later why. Great. Thank you so much, everyone. One more question, and I hope you don't mind. But we know where you're from, and I don't know what's going on in your life right now. So I would love to hear how you are feeling right now in this moment. Give me a word. You can give me a short phrase, an adjective. Faith is saying, I'm great, splendid, Maria, great, energized, a bit tired, Ivana is saying, bless, Rabia, beautiful, exhausted, Elena. I think a lot of teachers are there. Antonella, depressed. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope we can shift your emotions a bit, but I can't take away the course of how we feel. Busy and lots of ashwagandha, and Jing Sandpeter is saying, good. So all emotions are valid, right? And I don't think sometimes we don't see how our students feel. So by simply asking a question, how are you feeling today? We can get a lot of insight into what the mood is, how our students are actually coming to class, what presence and what feelings they're bringing. And that's really important for attention, as we look at in a minute. And I acknowledge the feelings. If my students are not feeling that happy, that's absolutely fine. Maybe they want to share why. Maybe not. Maybe they just simply want to say, how does that feel? Or where do they feel it in their body? And then, of course, it is a very important thing for us to think about, what is that telling you? If you say you're exhausted, how does that feel? Maybe heavy, maybe dark. We all have different ways of describing our emotions, but what is it telling you? I think that's a really important question to ask ourselves. They're always tired, sleepy, and hungry, and we can acknowledge that. So if they're tired, maybe we want to start with an energizer, right? Because the zone we're in really impacts our ability to pay attention to what we do in the classroom. As you can see in this beautiful image here, we have got zones that are very pleasant, yeah, happy, maybe relaxed, good to go. And then we have the zones that are maybe less pleasant. Within those zones, we also have that intensity, very intense when you're really angry, or maybe a little bit less intense when you're just tired, for example. This is based on the arousal valency theory. I'm not going to talk about that, but if you want to learn about emotions, Professor Brackett made this chart. He calls it a mood meter, and it's a really amazing book. I don't know if you can see it. The Permission to Feel. And it explains all about emotions. And he's designed this for children. so they can sort of identify how they feel. And based on that, we can decide what's the next step in my teaching. Yeah. So, for example, my students are all highly energized and excited and happy, and that lots of energy doesn't always mean we can attend, right? Because we're so excited, we might not be able to focus. So a very simple way to get our students to calm down, and I'm not sure, maybe you are familiar with this, is some guided breathing exercises. Now, I don't know if any of you do any breathing exercises in class. Can you give me a plus in the chat box if you have done something like this with your students? And if not, you can give me a minus, or you can, Peter, thank you, Joanna. Yeah. So initially, when I started working in the primary schools in New Zealand, I noticed that my kids came to school like all over the place. They had been playing on the playground for 2 hours because parents dropped them off early. And then they come to class with a lot of energy, which could be positive, but not always, right? And we had to sort of settle down because we had writing and reading tasks to do. And a very simple activity is, for example, finger breathing, shape breathing, hand breathing, whatever you want to call it. I get my students to inhale and then they open their hand. Exhale. Hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. And maybe they want to do it again. So if you want to join, do it at your own speed. Very much. Inhale, hold, exhale. Now, if you think that's not going to work because they have nothing to hold on to, they can do inhale, hold, exhale, hold. So they can trace their finger. Or they can count as well when they breathe in. 1, 2, 3, hold, out, 2, 3, 4. So whatever way works for you. A lot of my students like shape breaths. So we take anything. It could be a sticky, in, hold, out, hold. And we try to get them to find their own rhythm. Now, if you have been doing that little bit of breathing with me, of course, it's not as relaxed as it is here in class. We say sit, your back against the seat, your feet on the floor. Take a deep breath and pick your breathing methods. Was Jacqueline is saying counting, whatever method my students have, I introduce them to different activities. They pick what they like, what works for them. Yeah, and then at the end, I often ask them, how are you feeling now? So if you did some of this breathing, how did that make you feel? Even if you just take 2 very deep breaths, what is that feeling you have now? Relax, calmer, Maria. I say, yeah, Imad, indeed, it feels better, right? And sometimes we can't really describe, but at peace is a beautiful way, Janie. Relaxed or calmer, quiet, peace, focus, Christy. So it is impressive. Go and look on Mr. Google, guided breathing, box breathing, finger breathing, counted breaths, if you want to look at that. It really helps your brain calm down. Good, we get back to this later. Let me show you what we're going to look at. And initially, yes, it might be a bit unsettled for kids, but I think once they feel that peace, that calm, that sort of fuzzy feeling that you get inside, You'll be surprised, they're more open to it than we think. And with teenagers, I introduce it. I don't get them. You have to use it. There's different ways, which I talk about in a little bit as well. So very simple, Sula. Yeah, inhale, hold, exhale, hold, guided breathing. And there are lots of different activities online that you can ask for teenagers, for young learners, for adults. Good. So we're going to talk about our context of teaching. We're going to activate our own brain a little bit more, emotional regulation, and what the role is of that in paying attention in class. And there will be different practical activities throughout the session. Now, they're all by invitation. So if you don't want to take part, absolutely fine. If you do and want to share your thoughts in the chat box, we would really appreciate that. Right, I hope we are ready, we are focused, as Sahit is saying, to get started. So, setting the context. Now, I've just spoken about my experience in primary schools, mostly in New Zealand, but I'm just wondering about your experience. Primary, secondary, adults. I'm just going to ask you if you ever have experienced something like this. If yes, put a plus in the chat box. If no, absolutely fine too. Some of them I wish it was a no, but I'm just curious to find out if I'm actually the only person who has this. So have you ever had a student who directly gave up on an activity before they even started doing? Jenny, there's a lot of yes there. Oh, so it is quite a common thing. It's not just me. That's always good to know. And maybe in your context, when you work one-to-one, you maybe don't experience that. In workshops as well, Peter is saying. Lovely. And what about the next one? Have you ever had any of your students suddenly panicking, freezing, or completely shutting down when you ask them to speak up and share something with the class? A mental block, Jacqueline is saying. Yeah, Maggie, definitely. What about somebody who suddenly started to show signs of misbehavior or undesired behavior, as I like to call it, when they found something difficult in the classroom? Yeah, they might pretend that they're doing the task, but they're actually zoomed out, Antigona, totally. Yes, Elaine, I think we have all experienced that ourselves as well, right? Good. So yes, suddenly the behavior changes when something is difficult. And then the last situation, they just don't seem to be able to focus at all, even though you know that you've selected a topic, you've made a lesson that you know your students are interested in, and that suddenly they're all off with the fairies, as we might say. They're not looking and engaging with what we're doing. Maggie's even saying, yes, no matter what I try. Now, I just want you to know, first of all, it is not you. It is the tricky brain. This is what does it sometimes, right? So don't beat yourself up, Maggie, when you say, I try so hard and it still happens. It is a very normal thing. There are days that the brain is absolutely not braining. I love that sentence. We're going to talk about what that is, because I think for us, the big question really is, why might this be happening? And of course, the answers I'm going to give you to this question, they're not the same for all students. So there's no one size fits all or one reason, but I think it's important for us to be aware of what it could be. So I'll get back to the situations I just showed you a little bit later, then we explore how that sort of relates to our brain. But I think we all agree that that's not really effective learning if they just can't behave, if they can't focus, if they don't even try, they're not paying attention. And as you might have seen in Georgia's webinar on memory and learning in February, it's all about if we don't attend, we cannot encode that information, we cannot store it, we cannot recall it. In other words, we don't learn. Yeah? So why might this be happening, you think, that students are suddenly off and not focusing? Any ideas? Feel free to put a word in the chat box if you think maybe this is the main reason. Let me guide you. What's going on in the body? Neurodiversity, Peter, totally. They might not be able to keep up with things. That actually might cause feelings, right? If you think, I don't understand, I can't keep up with this pace. A lot of what we actually do or don't do in life is motivated by our emotions. Anxiety, exactly, Elaine. Maria, family problems, stress, worries, distract us, Said. And those distractions are actually often bringing up emotions in our body. Anger. They aren't able to learn. They're like, oh, I feel frustrated that I can't do this. So emotions, indeed. I do have to say, when we talk about emotions, there are many different definitions, and there is not one agreed definition. Yeah, there are loads of different ways of describing them. The word came into use in about 1800, and before that time, emotions more or less was described as passions, affection, sentiment, and then they made one term in English. So this is maybe why it's so hard to find one definition. Maria, lack of confidence again, low self-esteem, they're all emotions that we feel inside, right? They're very short-lived responses. If we start to feel frustrated, it might be about 90 seconds. Those chemicals rise even more, and then they go down, and then that initial emotion is gone. But our brain might really believe we cannot do it. And we start to think even more about, see, I'm a really bad student. I'm so much dumber than the other students. And that brings those emotions, that chemical cascade, as I call it, going and going. So we get stuck in that loop because that initial emotion sets off some chemical reaction in the body, which I'll speak about in a minute. But if we keep thinking about that, it doesn't go down. So that is really interesting. We have got a brain that can think, but sometimes it makes things a bit harder for us because you get that sudden reaction that keeps going. And in the classroom, we also have emotional contagion. We have it everywhere. If one student start to sort of be very, oh, teacher, this is too hard, I can't do it. What happens to some of the other students? They sort of catch that emotion or mood as well. So here, it can just sort of spiral. I don't know if you've ever walked into a classroom really happy and everybody in the class was really down because they just got their grades from the previous lesson. They were not happy. Within 3 minutes, you have the same feeling. But it can also be the other way. You come into class thinking, I'm not sure today. Your students are extremely happy, cheery, energized, and you take on that feeling. Yeah, emotional contagion, a very important concept to be aware of as teachers, because we're in the business of managing emotions. We're not just managing classrooms, we're managing people, and all our actions are underpinned by motivations. Yeah. So good. So very quick activity. Oh, no, not yet. Sorry. Where's my cursor? There it is. So emotions, they are responses to life experiences we have, but also to what we imagine. As I said before, when we start to imagine we're really bad students, the brain doesn't make the distinction between a lived experience in the past that gave bad results or danger, or what we imagine. Yeah, that shouting of the teacher can suddenly trigger that same response as thinking about, oh my goodness, she's going to shout at me. Then also, they always are triggered by things that are meaningful to us. So they're very individual. One student might respond like this, another student in a different way. And that is always a challenge, I think, because we have so many different people and different emotional schemas in our classroom. And also, I think very important, we often talk about good and bad emotions, but they are not good or bad, because if I get angry with the teacher, that might be undesired. But if I get angry with somebody who wants to steal my bag, it's actually a good emotion. I'm defending myself. So it might be a better way of us as teachers to look at it as data or information that communicates a need. then it means, indeed, Andrea, all emotions are normal. And if we see it as expressing a need, maybe not in the most appropriate way, we also create that space between feeling personally attacked as a teacher, or they don't like me. No, they're just communicating something in a rather clumsy way, but that is the fact. How can I deal with this? Yeah. So some of you students might come to class being like, sad, depressed, particularly things that are going on in the world. I live in the Middle East, that's why I teach as well. Not everybody comes to class very cheery in the morning, right? And it's important to have a positive mindset and be open to learning, to attend. So let's do a quick activity, which I've called Focus on the Good. And I'm going to invite you to join me. You have a choice. There are two different tasks. Pick one and have a think. Do what it asks you to do. And then we take it from there. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to do one of these tasks. Either think about something, one good thing that happened to you this week, or one thing that made you smile recently. Just have a think. And of course, you can maybe see colors. You can ask about what did it feel like? What did it look like? What did it sound like? What did it smell like? Flowers. Maria was giving some flowers. Peters are helping your colleagues and paying them compliments. Oh, kindness is a really, really strong emotion that actually brings about a lot of good emotions in our body. Going for a swim, the birth of a baby, beautiful, Jacqueline. Your application was approved, Pietro, lovely. Ah, sunny weather, Andrea, what that makes such a difference, doesn't it? So while you have thought about this, when we reflect on it, how do you feel now? Or how did this activity make you feel? Blooming flowers, Kiriaki, lovely. Hugs from your students, Manolia. Maria saying, make me feel blessed, happy moments. Andrea, see, and this is so powerful. It made you smile. It made you happy. Made you laugh. Wonderful. So this is a very simple way to shift your emotions by recalling a positive past memory. If you want to know more about shifting emotions, this is an amazing book by Ethan Kross. I'll show you that at the end slide, I think, as well. It's called Shift, and it's all about emotions and how we can shift our emotions. Because when it makes you smile, or when you have something positive in mind, the chemicals in your body that are released are different. Yeah, it's often the happiness hormone. Yeah, so dopamine gets released and it really lowers anxiety. It lowers that cortisol and stress level, and it disrupts that negative thinking pattern that we often have in our brain. So a really powerful way to relax and reduce that stress and anxiety. Yeah. And why is that so important? Because different emotions play a different role in our attention. Yeah, so these sort of emotions, they drive our attention in the right directions. Negative emotions distract our attention from what we want to do in the classroom. And attention, as Georgia said as well in a webinar, really drives that learning. If you cannot attend to something, you cannot encode it, you cannot store it, you cannot recall it. So that learning is very much hindered. And this is not a new thought. Plato already spoke about this about 2000 years ago. All learning has an emotional base. Yeah, so that is a really, really old saying, but it is still true. Because if we misdirect our focus, we miss what's happening in the classroom, we cannot learn. And learning is what we need for our students to succeed in whatever it is, English, mathematics, or science. Cool. So these emotions, where are they made? I think we all know that emotions come from our brain. So I thought, let's do a quick activation of our brain. Yeah, so we're going to now not really activate emotions as such. I want to activate your thinking, that thinking bit at the front. So very brief, this is the brain. And I think you know that thinking happens in that prefrontal cortex. That area of the brain is not developed to mid-20s or late 20s. So that's why teenagers maybe often think more with their feelings in the limbic system. So for a simple description, you could say you have the lower brain, the survival, the brainstem for your heart rate, your muscles, your adrenaline. Then you have emotions in the middle, and then you have your thinking brain at the front. And in that limbic system, you've got the amygdala, a very small almond-shaped part of the brain, but it's that major processing center for our emotions. Yeah. If our emotions are activated, like I said, negatively, then the prefrontal cortex cannot really function. And that's what we need for thinking, reasoning, problem solving. It's your cognitive processing area. So good. So that's sort of the basic knowledge about the brain. But what does the brain really like and how does it function when we look at attention? So let's have a quick quiz, if you don't mind, about the brain. I'm going to give you a sentence. There's one word missing, A or B, and feel free to pop that in the chat box for me. What do you think? The brain prefers A, surprise, or B, predictability? Oh, I've got all the letters here, A and B. Interesting. Well, the brain prefers predictability. If we know what's coming next, actually, we can focus on what happens in life. Yeah, so we can study, because if it is always thinking, oh my goodness, surprise, what's coming next? What's coming next? It is attending to, am I safe? Am I not safe? Which is the most powerful part of our brain. So that uncertainty actually triggers that high alert. So we keep on scanning our environment. Now, if you want to get students interested in a sudden activity, yes, then surprise is really useful, because suddenly the brain attends to that surprise. But to create a stable learning environment where they can attend, it is predictability. Andrea, you have just taken the words I was about to say. We are actually creatures of habit, indeed. Next one, when your learners feel worried, the brain's ability to learn is A or B. Oh, beautiful. We all agree on that. That is reduced. Indeed, because that focus in the brain is very much focused on, am I safe? Because like I said before, the brain doesn't make the distinction between that lion in real life trying to eat me, because it's a very old brain. I mean, hasn't really changed that much in all those years. Or is it something I keep thinking about and imagining, for example? Yeah, so it's worried about survival. There is no chance that the prefrontal cortex, which we need for attention, can be very active. Emotions affect our thinking, A or B, do or don't. I see a BA as well. As we said before, they very much do affect our thinking. Yeah, because it impacts how much space we actually have in our working memory. If we're very worried, it's in the back of our mind. That's that beautiful expression, but actually it's just in the middle of our mind, and we cannot really focus on what's going on in the classroom. And negative emotions really misdirect that focus and that attention. Positive emotions we can sort of harness and use in the right direction. Good. What about this one? Students to feel safe in class in order to learn. Is it need or is it prefer? Saba, lovely. Yes, Almira, great. They need to feel safe in class in order to learn. An emotional, students can focus better when they feel emotionally safe. Yeah, we don't need to worry, so we can 100% attend to what's happening in the class. This is why it's so important that we create these emotional and psychological safe learning environments. Because don't forget, what we do in the classroom, learning, is already a little bit scary. We're pushing them out of their comfort zone every day. And when we speak about language learning, they also have to speak with other people in the class in this weird language. Yeah. Ooh, that sets the brain off already. Yeah, so we really need to make a safe environment. How can we make them feel safe? Elizabeth is asking psychological safe learning environment where you show that you can be trusted, you have empathy for your students, you are interested in your learners, and you withhold judgment. You listen and communicate without shouting, for example, or judging them, welcoming mistakes, accepting. A big one is acceptance indeed, Elizabeth. Good. Last one. What do you think of this one then? Emotional reactions happen automatically and we can or we can't learn to manage these reactions. Beautiful, Daniela. Yes, mistakes are welcome is one of my philosophies in teaching. Yes, I actually have a different answer for this one when I speak and observe teachers. I always think, well, you should learn to manage your emotions because it's not a very simple thing. Our emotions do kick off automatically. It's the chemical reaction in our body. That's how we are wired, but we can learn to manage them. And Christy, I agree, we should be able to manage them, particularly as teachers. We need to be those role models, and the emotional contagion, if we lose it, they lose it too. Yeah, so I think it's very important in the classroom that we sort of are able to manage them, but also in relationships with the parents, because we all make mistakes, things go wrong, and think about how you can actually use your thinking skills better to solve those problems. So here's a quick summary of what we just talked about. And we go and explore this in a bit more detail. But there's been lots of thinking going on. And indeed, I think it's Daniela, was it? Yeah, Daniela, indeed, we can teach our students. We have to learn ourselves first how we manage those emotions and then teach our students. So good. So quick activity. We've done some thinking. So again, 2 activities available for you. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Just pick one that you think that works for me in the context I'm in. Because the first activity has got to do with getting up. And the second one is to give yourself a hug. Yeah, decide what you want to do. Good. Now, maybe you are doing this, swinging your arms around, Peter. You can't type if you do that, though, or you've got magic hands. Right. Interesting, right? So just simply like this, and then you move your hands. Ah. And again, I'm going to ask you, as I did with the previous activities, how did that make you feel? Ah, Jacqueline, you're doing yoga. Well, I just came from yoga this morning as well. And then you probably notice something in your body when you come back from those yoga sessions or walks or swimming. Better, relieved, wonderful, more energetic, calm and peaceful, appreciated by yourself. And I think we don't do that often enough as teachers. Yeah. Calm, Subaya saying. Lovely indeed. And it can stay with you as well. Yeah, so a very simple activity, which I get back to in a minute. Right, so hopefully we are ready to continue. So we know about emotions, we know a little bit more about the learning preferences or styles of our brain. So with all those emotions in our brain, what is actually going on? And remember those students we spoke about before that were not even trying or sort of getting very upset. Emotional regulation is very essential for maintaining that mental health and well-being and to deal with challenges in the classroom and in life. Not only for the teachers, but also for our students. We need to be able to manage and respond to emotional experiences in an effective, helpful way. And I'm going to introduce you to a system that Professor Paul Gilbert has spoken about a lot. He's a psychologist in the UK, and he speaks about the 3 emotional regulation systems. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, compassion focused therapy. He's written The Compassionate Mind. And often when our students fly off the handle or don't want to do something, he talks about the threat system that has been activated in our brain. And the threat system is not negative. It's a very powerful system, probably the most important system in our brain, because it keeps us alive. It's all about survival, but it's also very easily activated. Yeah, remember that lion? That's how it activated in the old brain. But the new brain, we can imagine the teacher's going to get angry at us. My parents are going to be so upset when I tell them I failed this. That also causes that threat system to be very active. It means that when this is activated, we start to focus our attention on staying safe, moving away from the danger. Yeah, that amygdala hijacks our thinking, so no learning can happen because I need to focus on getting myself to safety. Andrea, beautiful. It leads to that fight, flight, or freeze response that we have. And it just wants to keep us alive. The motto it's got is more or less better safe than sorry. Let me run, let me hide. It's very much a survival system. The issue is it sets off cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate goes up. You start to sweat a little bit. All the blood goes to your muscles. You can no longer think. Yeah, but don't get me wrong, it's not a bad system. It's essential for survival, but not so useful for learning. I think, Jane, you said before anxiety. Yeah, this is very much that offsetting of that threat system. And that means that we cannot learn because we need to keep ourselves safe because adrenaline is ready to make us run or fight. Then also we've got the drive system in our brain, and the drive system is all about achievement and motivation. While as the threat system keeps us safe, the drive system gives us the motivation to move in directions that are important for us in life. In the past, that might have been maybe to gather food and shoot animals and stay alive, find a cave. In our modern day and age, it's more focused on achieving life goals, getting degrees, a beautiful car, status, money, jobs. It's all focused on getting things done. Yeah, so it's always looking and working on getting it done, makes me feel good, dopamine hits me, and I feel really, really pleasant. So when we achieve that goal, that's that pleasurable feeling we get. So it helps us work hard in the classroom. It helps us to achieve life goals, for example. And it's actually positively affected by a little bit of stress, right? Because sometimes you have this deadline, it makes you work harder to achieve that. But if you stay stuck, again, we're getting more in that threat system. Oh, I need to keep going, I need to keep going. And then you start to get worried. And again, you get cortisol and adrenaline. So you can have too much drive, then good for you. Becomes chronic, it actually activates that threat system again. And then the last system he speaks about, that is the soothing system in our brain. You might think there is no threat, there is no drive, I just relax, but actually the body is still doing things. Like it has a special system to make us feel calm and content, yeah, to make us feel safe. This really needs to be activated. And our brain is hardwired to connect to other people, safety in numbers, to minimize the threat around us. That's when it sets in, when you relate with other people, when you feel safe with other people. It doesn't mean that the stress or the worries they have goes away, but it means that we can create a calmer brain by certain activities that get that same response, and oxytocin in our body is released. So the motto of the soothing system really is just, rest and digest, feel safe. Yoga, for example, you feel safe because your parasympathetic system kicks in. You don't have to run, you can relax, you can breathe. And this is when your prefrontal cortex is fully enabled and you're 100% open to learning. Yeah, so relationships with other people, very important to get this activated in the classroom. So again, that making them feel safe and included, as somebody said, is super important for us to do. Yeah. Now, it's not that one is better than the other, but I think one of the challenges is maybe that one is sometimes more activated than the other. So let's go back to our students. Remember those 4 situations. Yeah? And my question is, which system do you think is dominant in these students? Based on what we just spoke about. Elena, thank you. Yeah, the first system, Marina, saying the threat system, the survival system, indeed. So maybe somebody is giving up without even trying, maybe because they think, I cannot do this. I don't want to fail because I fail. I'm the only one in the group and I'm going to get pushed out. Because remember, this old brain is a tricky brain. It's not the student. It's not you. It's the old brain that's always looking to be in that group, that social connection. That's when it feels safe. If you're on your own, you're not going to survive those lions. Yeah, the second person as well, they panic and froze in front of class. You might think, oh my goodness, they're going to hate what I do. And your brain associates this with I'm in danger. It's the lions and they're going to eat me. Misbehavior when you're struggling with a task. Again, you get frustrated with yourself and you think, I cannot do this. I'm so bad at this. And then again, you keep saying that to yourself. You activate the modern brain, the prefrontal cortex, but by thinking that same thought, you still set off the threat system in your brain. That fear, maybe, of doing it wrong and what's going to happen next. And not being able to focus. There's things going on in life. I think it's also important that we show empathy when we see things like that, because there might be something going on in their life environment that they just do not have the space in their working memory to focus on what we do. Yeah, and all learning is very much state dependent, as Plato once wrote. And you can see here the effect of all these emotions on our brain. Going back to that last statement, I think is really important. And this is one of the biggest lessons I learned as a primary school teacher, that every desk, we used to call it, has a story. Yeah, so sometimes your kids in your class sit there, they've got fear, Jacqueline, indeed, a mind killer. But it might not be because of you. It might be because something is going on at home. It might be because they're bullied at the playground. It might be because they don't feel included. They might simply be petrified of making mistakes, having a fixed mindset because they haven't been taught at home how that works. And so keep in mind that they've got a life outside the classroom that we all bring in. And those worries, we bring them in. We cannot leave them. We can only teach our students and ourselves ways to manage them. We're not taking away the problems, but we're giving them the skills to manage it in the moment so they can attend to what the task on hand in front of us is. And then you might think, when I have a student or even myself and something negative happens, I cannot get over it. Here I am. I'm very bad at this. I had to really teach myself to get out of that, because our brain is actually made to attend much more to negative experiences. It's called negativity bias, as you probably know. They stick in our heads and they're very hard to get rid of. Why? Because your brain has to remember, in the old days, those lions, what sort of patterns bring me danger? What sort of things do I need to be on the lookout of? Yeah, so when I've had that happen to me once, then I keep on thinking it might happen again. So my brain really imprints negative experiences a lot deeper than positive ones. It's like a lesson for next time. So again, it's not you, it's very natural, but we need to be able to shift those emotions if we want to learn. So this is your emotional regulation system. I haven't got them in colors, but I think you can see where they are. Ideally, they are balanced. Now, as we saw with our students, and I don't know if I ask you the question, draw 3 circles, which one would be the biggest? Often, I think the drive or the threat for me is bigger than my soothing system. Yeah, because I think I'm a bit hyper alert. I'm also quite motivated to do things. And that soothing system is much smaller. That's not bad, but it's really important that we attend to it because it turns down, the threat system turns down the volume of the other emotional systems. And ideally, we want to be balanced if we want to attend, be able to focus, be able to learn and function. Yeah, so this is just something for yourself. Maybe read a bit more and then think, which one would be bigger for me? How can I actually change and make my soothing system a little bit more active? Because as we all know, there is no separation in your mind, between your minds and emotions. Thinking and emotions go together. In the past, we thought they were different, but we all know that if you don't feel well or if you're anxious, learning is a lot harder. Yeah, I've written about that in the book as well. If you want to read more, Andrea, meditation techniques, yoga, walking, breathing, all those things are really, really important, right? Now, I'm going to tell you one more thing. Context matters. Emotions are not really universal as such because what we see as fear and anxious, other people might see as a challenge, other people might see as normal. It's a very interesting book by Mesquita about the cultures between us. And she talks about how we respond is very learned by what we have observed in our environment. However, we don't get taught often at home, unless you're lucky, how to control those emotions. Yeah, so thinking one students respond like this and other like that, that's the culture they're raised in, the family, but also the different cultures in the States, for example, or in the Middle East. Yeah, with different ways of what we think is normal and acceptable, and that brings up different emotions. Good. I've got one more section, and this is how we deal with that, right? Now, we've already done several activities today, and I'm going to reflect on those activities. I think the most important thing for us is to be aware of the emotional regulation. So, how can we manage those emotions? And we often speak about emotional agility. And again, if you're interested in that topic, an amazing book, Emotional Agility from Susan David. And it is more or less how do I manage my emotions skillfully, activate my soothing system so I can respond to this stress, worries, anxiety in a way that is to the best of my abilities in that context and functional. So it's not about taking problems away. It's not about devaluing negative emotions. It's about how can I sort of work with those emotions in the moment, right? So what I think is very useful to develop with our students and for ourselves, because I've learned lots by doing my research for my PhD on emotions and motivation, is to develop an emotional management toolkit. So, like I said, just some disclaimers. There's no one size fits all solution. Somebody said before, I prefer the counting to the breathing with the box or the hands. You have to find what works for you. I give my students options, they pick what they like. You have to think about what's appropriate in your context as well, developmental level of your learners. And of course, it starts with you. Yeah, so I think the most important thing before we can do any of this in our classroom is that we have that psychological safe environment. So the culture of welcoming mistakes, trust and empathy, getting to know your students, disclosing a little bit out of your own emotions and your own experiences and how you dealt with that. Yeah, so it shows that you are a real authentic human being. Yes, Andrea, why don't they teach that at school? I think that's really, really important. In New Zealand, we try to insert more and more of this in the curriculum, but there's a lot to do. And this is why I said if you have more room, it would be beautiful. And language schools often do so. So, step one, and social emotional learning, what we talk about in the book actually is how you can integrate it into the English language classroom, right? So recognize emotions and naming them. Step one, remember the activity we started with? That was very much how do you feel? Students need to recognize those feelings. Where do you feel them? How do they feel? It's all about strengthening that self-awareness, doing quick emotional check-in with your students, or using stories and ask them, how does the teddy feel? How does a giraffe feel? Talking about your emotions or in general about emotions of valid, it's absolutely fine, and building that vocabulary. Step one, recognizing. Then if they're really upset, anxious, whatsoever, we need to calm that nervous system. Now, for me, yoga is a beautiful thing. Meditation is beautiful to do, but I cannot take half an hour to do some yoga with my students every time I see that nervous system setting off, that threat system getting in. So we need to think about activities that reduce the heart rate, get the blood pressure down again, reducing that stress response, and try to create a calm brain, because a calm brain is a thinking brain. Remember this one? The breathing, and also the activity on this one where we were having you hug yourself, right? That's also a very powerful one. You're actually calming your soothing system. Yeah. So hugs and touch, very important. We can't always touch our students, but they can hug themselves. Breathing exercises, cool down breaths is another one. They put something in their hands, they focus on it, they feel it while they breathe. Is it hot? Is it cold? What shape is it? What's the weight? A coin, for example, a paperclip. Soothing rhythm breathing. This is the most beautiful one. I didn't want to do it with you because it takes probably about 8 to 10 minutes to do it properly, but it's a mantra where we also say mind slowing down, body slowing down. So if I can send you one tip, go and check out soothing rhythm breathing, and please try to do it for yourself, and you will feel amazingly calm and focused after that. My calm place is one of my favorite activities. Very simple to do, good for language sharing as well afterwards. Get them to think about, imagine what's your favorite place where you calm. Yeah, you have it in mind. Okay, close your eyes. What can you hear, see? So very much an imagery based task. But remember, the brain responds to images the same as it does to real experiences. And then in the end, you want them to take a snapshot of that scenery. So when they go back and get really hyper, go to your calm place. And maybe you don't need to do the whole process again. You say, okay, go back to that picture. What could you see? What could you smell? What could you hear? So here again, very much a way to calm down our system. I use it as well when I'm nervous, when I'm traveling, for example. And I'm like, oh my God, calming myself down. Then the other one, shifting those emotions, as we spoke about already. And we were very much shifting when we use our body, we activate different chemicals in our brain. And also, when we think about past positive experiences, it is amazing. It recreates that dopamine, things come back to mind, and suddenly we think, oh, I feel better now. I can actually think again and focus on my job. You're rewiring it for that moment. My happy place, very similar activity as the one I just showed you, my calm place. Think about a place where you feel happy, imaginary or where you have been. See, hear, smell, and then really take that snapshot and bring that back. Yeah. The senses are super powerful as well. So an activity I do with my teenagers, actually, we think about what helps you find joy. Think about touch, taste, sight, sound, and or smell. Some of them might say it's only touch, it's only maybe sight and sound. Okay, 4 ways that you can shift your emotions. This is very individual. It could be going for a walk. It could be doing a crossword puzzle, listening to music. For me, walking on the beach barefoot or watching cat videos. That is an absolute winner. It makes me smile. I watch for 5 minutes, make a cup of tea, and go back to work. And I feel much more like, okay, I can now sort of focus again because the sensory experience has shifted my emotions and I'm much more positive. My oxytocin and my dopamine are sort of activated here. If you want to do something with young learners, you can just make a little booklet. Yeah, we make a little A4, we fold it up, and they come up with all the things they can or can't do when they're angry. You make a list, they make the mini booklet, and they write and draw the things they can do. There's 8 pages in a mini booklet from an A4. And then when they get a bit like, oh my goodness, teacher, okay, take your mini booklet, pick one thing that you can do independently to calm your mind. Yes, a really simple activity and arts involved in making it. And the last one, of course, is that mindfulness activities, because mindfulness is really important to be present, to be in that moment, which is what we need for learning as well. Focus on what's in front of you. So we didn't do this activity, but very simple. Favorite color? Name 10 things with that color. You really need to forcefully think. You are in the now. Yeah. Unhook 3 things you can see now, 3 things you can hear, and 3 body parts that you want to move. You are in the now. And other things, very simple. I get my students to doodle. Don't know if you see it. And then they color it in. Coloring, super, super focused. So Color Fest, or even the 5 senses grounding, 5 things you can see, 4 you can hear, 3 you can touch, 2 you can smell, 1 thing you can taste, and 3 things to be thankful for. Gratitude is really important to create that oxytocin, that sense of belonging, and that being part of the here and now, that safety feeling, and also positive feelings again. Yeah. Good. Journaling. Well, I was going to skip that slide, but Andrea, you're indeed asking for it. Journaling. There is no research what would be the best, a gratitude journal, a self-compassion journal, a reflection journal, but they are all proven to be very, very beneficial to help you focus on the present moment, enhance self-awareness, and enhance emotional regulation. So yes, this is an example that I do at the end of the day sometimes, yeah, to grow my strengths in this area, because surely I don't know it all. I can still improve. But I think it's a really powerful way. Thank you for bringing that up. Last one is a summary. So I said all this before. I've added it's active and intentional. Being able to manage emotions doesn't happen by itself. It starts with recognizing, calming your system, shifting your emotions, and being in the present will really help you be more able to attend to what's in front of you in the classroom or beyond. Yeah, so my last activity for you, you can probably guess it. 3 things from this session that you thought that was useful. Oh, that's what I am grateful for. And I hope I've given you some things to take away.
Thank you very much, Anna. There were so many things to take away, and especially the way that we did the activities and then we put them in that system of the 3 with the 3 systems, and then seeing where do they belong. I think organizing them like that really makes a lot of sense for me, and I'm very grateful for. And we have so many thank yous, very grateful expression in the chat. I wanted to just, yes, great. The reading is there. Thank you so much, because people were asking for the reading as well.
Yeah, these are some different books that I showed you because there's so many interesting resources. So That one you find on the slides. The other one was emotional agility. So I'll show it and hopefully you can see it from Susan David. Then we had Shift, also an amazing book from Ethan
I think we'll
Cross.
be able to post all of these titles in the description of your YouTube video. So I think that will be a great resource, and then people, because they will want to revisit these resources, and there is a lot to learn. And if you, for teachers who are really interested in that, there is a lot to then explore, and it's great that you're giving us all these resources. So this is, yeah, exactly the YouTube channel. All the series of Attention Matters and Anna's webinar will be uploaded there in the coming week, and you will be able to find the presentation again, and also the resources. Anna, I think for us, it's a great to be able to host these kind of conversations in our platform and talk about the importance of providing this safe space, and that you talked about, the safe space for learning. I don't know if there are any questions. I think there was a lot of thank yous and a lot of great sense of gratitude for all the things that you've shared with us today. So if there aren't any questions that I can see, I'm not going to create any questions myself. I am very, very grateful for all the things that you shared, and I would like to thank you deeply. Thank you, Anna.
It was my pleasure, and I'm always happy to talk about it again. And yeah, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to bring this into our teacher community, because I think it's really important for teachers and for ourselves as adults in life, right?
Absolutely, especially in these times, and that there are a lot of challenges that we face, that they come back to the sense of safety and the threat system that is very, very alert. Great. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Just a couple of things. You will receive a certificate of attendance next week for your participation here. There will be a short survey as we exit, and we will really appreciate your feedback as always. And we will be announcing our June event in next week, so you will have a chance to we'll do a series on focus on skills, a new series of webinars with 4 speakers, and you will be able to find these on our website very shortly. Thank you so much for everybody for your attention. Thank you, Anna, once again, and it's really great to see you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.